Welcome to this video on the emergency electrical configuration, presented to you by the AutoPilots. This video continues our Airbus A320 Type Rating series. As with all of our tutorials, this video is split into two parts. The theory part, and a practical demonstration on Microsoft Flight Simulator. To skip straight to the practical, head to this time in the video. We hope you enjoy this lesson.
Welcome to this theory part on electrics. Today's lesson will look into the emergency electrical configuration. We will cover all the necessary topics for this failure, including the technical background, the RAM air turbine, the Ecam and Ecam procedure, the actions following this failure, the QRH, both the summary and the systems remaining, the importance of the pilot monitoring role, and also further considerations. We are in an emergency ELEC, or EMA ELEC, configuration when we lose both AC bus 1 and AC bus 2. Following this, the electrical system now consists of only an emergency generator, the essential transformer rectifier, an AC essential bus bar, a DC essential bus bar, and the batteries. The RAT is a small wind turbine that deploys automatically if AC bus 1 and 2 fail. It generates some electrical power which supplies the AC essential bus bar and DC essential bus bar via the essential transformer rectifier. It can be deployed manually as well as automatically. It also allows the blue system to function if electrical power is lost. The RAT stalls and the emergency generator stops at 125 knots. Here is what you will see on the Ecam initially when you enter emergency electrical configuration. The Ecam also has these actions, with some further explanations of each action. We will be referring to this later in the practical demonstration. When dealing with this failure, the first thing you need to do is aviate, navigate, and communicate. Autopilots, flight directors and auto-thrust are lost. The captain, CM1, assumes control as only PFD1 and ND1 remain, therefore it makes sense they become PF. With land ASAP in red, a mayday call should be made, and the crew should be alerted as they will lose a lot of electrical power in the cabin. Once you have completed the initial actions, you are ready to begin the Ecam. Remember to work things slowly, as one of you is flying so capacity will be reduced. You will have to confirm the failure on the SD page, which can be brought up by pressing and holding the ELEC system push button on the ECP, and then releasing it. The Ecam will guide you to reset the generators, if failed, and then again with the bus tie-off, in order to segregate the system. Continue to work through the Ecam, and we will explain this along the way during the practical part. It also tells us that we are in alternate law, with protections lost. How will this affect us during the approach? To review the status page, you must press and hold the status button. You can release this button once the review is complete. The status brings up a lot of information, however, here are the most significant things. Keep speed between 140 and 320 knots. You are in alternate law and direct law when the landing gear is down. You have no reveries, and only spoiler 3 and 4 work. There are no radio altimeters, no nose wheel steering, and you are Cat 1 only. The QRH has two useful parts on the emergency ELEC. The first one is a summary for each phase of flight from the cruise, similar to the dual hydraulics which we covered in a previous video. The flight crew should refer to this summary throughout the failure. They are really helpful. The QRH also has a Systems Remaining page, which will review all the systems and tell you if they have been lost, or if they remain. It's a long list, and the significant remaining systems are, for the fly part, PFD1 remains, and we are in alternate law. NAV, ND1, FMGC1, RMP1, VOR1, ILS1, and DME1 remain. COM, VHF1, HF1, ATC1, and ACP1 and 2. Whilst PF has the responsibility of hand-flying the plane at all times, the role of PM should not be underestimated. It is important they communicate clearly with PF, who will have a very high workload. They will need to work through the Ecam methodically, and have many other tasks to do: communication with ATC via RMP1, crew and passengers, landing performance, setting up approach on MCDU, and checklists. But most importantly, they need to monitor PF, especially when there are no stall or overspeed protections. When it comes to the decision-making process, there are several things to consider. With land ASAP in red, you need to get the aircraft on the ground quickly, but that doesn't mean you compromise safety. Ideally, you want an airport that is close by, within 80 nautical miles. The airport needs to have Cat 1 weather, with calm winds preferred. The arrival and approach should not be complex. This prevents your workload getting even higher. ILS is best in this situation. A low MSA will also reduce workload for the crew. And multiple runways are always welcome for the crew. This offers them redundancy should one become blocked, and also ATC can delegate the runway solely for the aircraft, whilst also still managing other traffic. Before we jump into the sim, let's think of some further considerations. You are in alternate law, but then will enter direct law when the landing gear is down. Therefore, you should put the gear down when at flaps 3 and on the glide path. PM will be using RMP1 to select the frequencies, and also have to make the callouts, using the calculation, altitude minus airport elevation equals altitude above aerodrome level. The RAT takes about 8 seconds to extend and couple with the emergency generator. During this period, there will be even fewer systems available. You will see this in the sim.
Master caution, master warning.
Autopilot off, I have control. My PFD is back. Removing thrust lock. My ND is back. Okay, I've got control of the aircraft. It looks like we are in alternate law as well. Let me try and re-engage the automatics. AP1, AP2, auto thrust, all unsuccessful.
That's understood.
Bird on, please.
Bird is on.
Correcting altitude.
Checked.
Read Ecam.
We are in an emergency electrical configuration. The Ecam confirms this. I have lost all screens my side, and on the overhead panel there are several failures associated with this.
That's understood, and I agree. We will need to divert if we cannot reset any of the systems. My radios, Ecam actions.
Auto flight, autopilot off. Clear auto flight.
Clear.
ELEC, emergency configuration. The ELEC page also confirms this. Minimum RAT speed, 140 knots. Generator 1 and 2, off then on. If unsuccessful, well, this was unsuccessful. Bus tie, off. Generator 1 and 2, off then on. No change. Engine mode selector, ignition. VHF1, HF1, ATC1, use. Fuel gravity feed. Procedure, gravity fuel feeding. FAC1, off then on. Bus tie, auto. APU, if available, start. We are above flight level 250, so cannot start it right now, but let's consider it once below. Clear ELEC.
Clear.
Flight control alternate law. Max speed, 320 knots. Clear flight control.
Clear.
Auto flight, auto thrust off. Clear auto flight.
Clear.
Secondary failures show the fuel pumps, which have all failed. Fuel is gravity fuel feeding. Clear fuel.
Clear. Okay, let's pause the Ecam. We have lander SAP in red, so we need to divert. Barcelona is behind us, about 80 miles away. The weather you got in the cruise earlier shows that it is Cat 1 and good conditions. Are you happy we divert there?
Affirm.
Great. I'll inform ATC. Mayday, 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 Airbus 123. Severe electrical failure. Requesting diversion and initial vectors to Barcelona. Set heading 240 and flight level 100.
Roger. Setting now.
Okay. Now we can continue with the Ecam.
Status.
Stop Ecam. No resets. There is some information in the QRH, with the remaining systems and summaries. Read status.
Status page says, minimum RAT speed, 140 knots. Max speed, 320 knots. Max brake pressure, 1000 psi. Fuel gravity feed. Avoid negative G factor. Avoid severe icing conditions. If severe ice accretion, min speed, VLS plus 10, or green dot. Maneuver with care. We are unlikely to enter icing conditions. Approach procedure. For landing, use flap 3. Approach speed, VREF plus 10, 140 knots. Landing distance procedure. Apply. We are in alternate law, protections lost. When landing gear down, we will enter direct law. Inoperative systems are flight control protections, reverse 1 and 2, ADR 2 and 3. RA 1 and 2. Spoiler 1, 2 and 5. ELAC 2. SEC 2 and 3. IR 2. Auto call out. Standby static system, wing anti-ice, AutoPilots 1 and 2. Auto thrust, Cat 2, left and right tank pumps, and nose wheel steering. Second page says, cabin zone at fixed temperature. Slats and flaps slow. Engine 2 bleed and pack 2 inoperative. Remove status.
Remove status.
Status removed. Ecam actions complete.
Set speed 280 knots.
.280 set.
Let's have a look at the emergency elect config summary in the QRH.
Sure. The summary says, max speed, 320 knots. We are in alternate law, protections lost. Only Captain Pitto and angle of attack heated. Fuel. Center tank usable by gravity, 2 tons unusable. Fuel is gravity feeding. Comms. VHF1, HF1, ATC1 and RMP1 only. Nav. ILS1, VOR1, GPS1 only. For landing performance assessment, use the performance application of the EFB.
That's understood. We can return to that later. So let's begin a DODA, if you're ready. D. We have diagnosed the failure of being in an emergency electrical configuration. We have lost multiple systems and flying in alternate law with the RAT out, and only my screen's working. Oh, options. We've discussed already that Barcelona is close by and good weather. So are you still happy that we decide on diverting to Barcelona? A sign. I am flying the aircraft, and can speak to ATC for now, so you will have to do everything else. Could you inform the cabin crew and passengers, then set up the MCDU for an ILS approach into Barcelona, and complete a landing performance? Then we can brief for the approach, and we will have a review after this. Okay, let's begin a brief. So we are doing a fully manual, raw data approach onto the ILS runway 25 right in Barcelona. What would you make the threats for this approach?
First threat is the increased workload due to the nature of the failure. So good monitoring and communication is required. Secondly, we are in alternate law, and will enter direct law when the gear is down, so you will have to trim manually, and then we have no reverse and you will need to brake manually.
I agree. Also MSA is 4,300 to the north, although the approach and go around keeps us over water. As I am flying raw data, please call localizer alive and glide slope alive when you see it. The weather is good, Cat 1 with about a 5-knot crosswind. In the QRH summary, the approach part says that we are Cat 2 inoperative, which is fine as we have Cat 1 weather. The minimum RAT speed is 140 knots, slats and flaps are slow, and for landing use flap 3, which we are. When landing gear is down, use man pitch trim will appear on the PFD, and we will be in direct law. Could you read the landing summary, please?
The landing summary says, for the flare, we only have 2 spoilers per wing, in direct law. Spoilers, only 2 per wing. No reverser. Braking is alternate without anti-skid. Max brake pressure of 1000 psi. No nose wheel steering. And if we need to go around, then when landing gear is uplocked, we go back into alternate law.
Great. That's understood. For the how part, I will look to fly an early stabilized approach, ensuring I am flaps 3 by the time I intercept the glide slope. Once on the glide slope, and speed is at VAP, I will call for gear down. The 1,500 foot calls are standard. Once we have come to a stop on the runway, the tow tug will come and meet us as discussed with ATC.
That's all understood. I have no questions.
Could you press the LS push buttons, and extend the center line? Set QNH1017.
QNH1017 set.
Checked. 3000 blue. Manage speed.
Speed managed.
Approach checklist.
Approach checklist. Baro ref.
QNH1017.
Seat belts.
On.
Minimum.
240 set.
Auto brake.
Not available.
EFB.
Stowed and connected. Set final approach course.
Localizer alive. 244 set.
Flaps 1.
Speed checked. Flaps 1.
Flaps 2.
Speed checked. Flaps 2.
Flaps 3.
Speed checked. Flaps 3.
Gear down.
Speed checked. Gear down. Master caution. We are now in direct law. 1,000 feet.
Check.
$500 feet, stable.
Check.
Hundred above. Minimum.
$100. 50, 40, 30, 20, 10. Spoilers, no reverse, decel. $70 knots.